I'd like to introduce Terry McKinnon. As I said, he's an Executive Director of Spring Creek. And just to go over some of the rules for the people that have just recently joined the webinar, is that your audio and your cameras have been turned off, as has your chat. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A function at the top of your screen, and either Terry or myself will endeavour to answer your questions throughout the seminar. So, Terry, welcome. Can I please just kick off by asking you to give us a little bit of a description of Beaudesert's location in relation to Brisbane and the Gold Coast?
Yeah, Joe, thanks for getting us involved. Beaudesert essentially originally was if you like, a farming community, but it's located about 40 minutes from the Gold Coast and about 50 minutes from Brisbane. And as I drove it only yesterday, I know that's accurate. It's been a large farming community, generally had a population of around about 15 to 17,000 people as time's gone by, but it's grown exponentially over the last few years because as you'll probably touch on later, there's not a lot of other places to go at the moment, especially for the Gold Coast, and its population is probably at the moment I'd imagine is around 19,000, and I think that'll grow a lot in the next 10 years because it's also one of the venues for the Olympic water sports. So is that?
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Terry. And just quickly, I mean, and you may have probably touched on it a little bit, but why did you choose Beaudesert for this particular development?
Oh, to be really honest, I'd like to make it sound as if we're really clever, but we're not. I had a farm outside of Beaudesert for many, many years, and I'd drive past this site on a regular basis. And I noticed that it had been for sale for a while. It was a Western Australian developer called Pete that owned it, and they tried to sell it several times, largely because they bought into a nearby development which was much, much, much larger, and their conflict of interest required them to sell this. And one day I just pulled up and helped myself in through the fence and went and had a look around the site, and I realised just how good a piece of land it was. And I think every development, anyone in property development should start with the high quality product because you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. So at the end of the day, I was really taken by the fact that it was beautiful land, and as a consequence, I then engaged the owners, and over a period of time, we were able to work out a deal that suited me, I suspect, rather than it suited them. But they needed to sell, and that's always the best way to buy, in my view.
Yeah, and look, thanks for that. And just to recap, so originally it was a Catholic church facility called Boystown. And look, the Catholic Church are very good at acquiring good quality property. So it's an elevated site. It's got nice views of the Great Dividing Range. And you're being a bit modest there, Terry, because it was purchased by Pete Group, which is a listed entity. I think they purchased it for around about 16 to 17 million. Correct. And then we funded your acquisition of that asset for about $9 million or thereabouts. And you also got very generous payment terms where you paid that over a period of time.
Yeah, we got 3 years, three equal payments of $3 million a year for 3 years.
Yeah. So it was purchased well, and it had an existing master plan on the site when you acquired it, which I'll get you to talk about in a moment. So can you talk about just generally the master plan that you have over the entire site, and talk about how big the site is, and
Sure.
and how many blocks that, or what you have approved for ultimately how many blocks will be developed on this site.
Okay. All right, take a deep breath and we'll get into that one. Purchase history you've touched on. The original plan had around 800 lots, and we still believe that's around about the yield that we'll get. It was 85 hectares, but as you know, Joe, we've added the neighbouring property of another 44 hectares to our original holding, and we're currently in the process of getting development approvals on that, and that'll give us another 300. Now, out of that, in terms of where we're at with that, there was 52 lots in stage 1, 46 lots in stage 2, and 81 lots in stage 3 and 4, and 20 lots in stage 8. So, and stage 8's it's not numerical. We did it because it was just economically the best way to tack stage 8 onto the other stages. But we started selling in 2021, in February of 2021. Average sale price at that time was $170,000. Our most recent sales on stage 3 and 4, where we did 81 lots, they're now averaging $301,000. And stage 8, which we've just finished, and thank you for the funding on that, they're now selling at around about $360,000. So all told, I think just get the figures right. We've got 17 blocks under contract still on stage 3 and 4. So we've got 22 left and 22 lots in stage 4. So we've got 42 lots of land left to sell. Everything else has been sold. And I think that if I get those figures right, total to date is we've developed 199 lots. We've sold 156, and our average sale price now is $340,000 a lot. Does that cover that one for you?
Yeah, that's correct. And it'd be fair to say there's probably another 600 or 700 lots yet to go within this estate. Is that as a rough estimate? Is that sort of?
Yeah. Well, we had 8, 9, 10, 11, 1,100. We've done 200. So.
And I suppose that the picture I'm trying to paint there is that, and we're going to touch on this further in the webinar, is that Terry has a particular strategy so that he the way he develops the estate is that he tries to create an increase in the land value as each stage is rolled out. So he started selling around about $170,000 per block. We're now into stages 3 and 4, and you're up around that $300,000 to $330,000 per block. And look, what I'll also mention to everyone on the webinar, he's primarily developing just lots of land, and we're going to talk about how he differentiates the offering. He does also put spec homes on, but when he does a stage of 50 lots, it's typically 50 lots of just raw land, and he might have half a dozen homes on that, but it's primarily a land subdivision. Look, Terry, moving on to the next question was, can you just tell us a little bit about your team and how long you've been working together and how you function together, etc.
Cool. While I fortunately get to be the figurehead, I suppose I get far more credit than I deserve. One of my beliefs about business is that you're as good as the people around you. And fortunately, my team been together a long, long time. Tony, he's very good sales and marketing guy. He's been with me 30 years. My landscaping and general handyman guy who looks after Spring Creek's cattle as well, because he's an ex-farmer, was John. He's been with me 24 years. Katrina, who's been my PA and is now helping with the development side of work with my son Christopher, she's been with me 22 years. So the reality of life is that we each know how each other think all the time. We know what our model is, and you touched on it before. Our model is to add value with each stage, and for that reason, we don't do investment stock or rental stock. We do only owner-occupier stock, because by selling to people who care about the house they build and the way they keep it, we know that the whole place continues to look better all the time. And there's plenty of other people who are doing investment and rental stock, and that's good. We need that, but it's just not our model. You can see from the park that you've got up on the screen now, even the way we do our parks, we take the original trees that were part of the Boys Town development, and we got a big shovel, and they pick those trees up, roots and all, and then we transplant them back into the parks, so that the trees in that park have been on this site for probably 60 or 70 years. So our model is to have a good team that works together. Everybody knows who everybody else thinks. We have a strategy and an ethos that says that we should be the best in any marketplace that we're in, and we believe Spring Creek's the best. Well, no, we don't believe. We know that Spring Creek's the best development in within 50 k's in any direction.
Yeah, and look, that's a really good point too, because we're on to the next question, which was how you differentiate your estate from other competing estates in the region. And one of the reasons we like lending to you, look, you've got the integrated team, so there's very strong connection between the development management team and the selling team. So all the sales are handled within your company. But the other thing too, which I want to touch on a bit more, is that we want to talk about the type of covenant. So the type of home that is built within the estate has to be approved by you. You'll only sell the completed land lots to owner occupiers, not developers. You spend more money on landscaping, and you've said it well to us before, is that people come into this estate, they can see that it's a quality estate because they're owner occupiers. It's a relatively good quality home that's being built. They can see the land or the appreciation in value, and that sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Which the alternative is to just sell to investors, and you sell them for $150,000 a block in stage 1, and you're still selling them for $150,000 a block in stage 8, 9, or 10, because there's been no price appreciation. And
to be honest, Joe, all you do there is you make a profit, but you don't get much satisfaction from what you do. We get a lot of satisfaction from what we do.
Yeah, and I think ultimately you make more profit too, don't you? Because you
do. Ultimately, you've got to wait for a little while, but ultimately you do, yes.
Yeah, because the big thing to remember is that the cost of goods sold, or you've purchased this land at $15,000 a lot, and that price isn't going to change, and you've got another 6, 7, 8 stages to go, and if prices go up, that's prima facie more profit for your estate.
Yeah, Joe. Recently, we because we're looking to forward another application to you guys in the next couple of weeks for stage 5. We asked our valuer to have a look at, just as a matter of caution, have a look at it and do another value. Because of all of the sales that have taken place around Beaudesert in the last year and a half, through the likes of AB Jennings, QM Properties, and a crowd out of Melbourne whose name escapes me, they've bought large tracts of land which they're currently looking to have development approval on. And their average price that they paid per lot was just a smidgen under $50,000 a lot, and we paid $9,500 a lot for ours. So we're lucky that we have the freeboard to actually do good work, which I think is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're just going to the next question here, is that which I think you've answered anyway, that stage 1 lots were selling for around about 170,000. Stage 2, I think it was 250. Stages 3,
236, mate.
Yeah, okay. And you spoke about stage 8, so I think I'll skip over that question. And I think you also touched on the current stage, which is stages 3 and 4, which was 81 land lots. You briefly touched on that, but can you just tell us, of the 81 lots, I think you said, could you tell us how many have been sold, how many remain to be sold, and broadly speaking, what was the average price per lot in stages 3 and 4?
No problem. We commenced selling that on the 25th of the 10th, 2023, so not that long ago. Average sale price there to date's been $301,500. We've settled 42 lots. We have 17 under contract as I speak, which I'm due to settle in about an hour and a half's time. And we have 22 left. So 22 blocks there plus the 20 lots in stage 8 gives us a current stock of about 42 lots available for sale, which the current sales rate, our current sales rate is just a bit under six a month. So you can see why we're going to be chasing you for the next stage very soon.
Yeah, so just to touch on that too. So sales have been a little bit stronger than anticipated, and there's a real risk that you'll be running out of lots to sell, isn't it? I mean, you'll have to get cracking on the next stage fairly soon. Yeah. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, with only 42 lots and we're selling 6 a month, you don't have to be Einstein to do the arithmetic, do you?
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, and look, just quickly also to talk about selling. I mean, primarily you're a land, you're providing raw lots of land. Can you talk a little bit around differentiating your offering around what you're doing with spec homes? And for anyone who doesn't know what a spec home is, that effectively what Terry will do is, if there's 50 lots of land, he might put half a dozen homes that have already been fabricated on those blocks of land. Is that correct, Terry?
Yeah, mate. Look, essentially, one of the strongest responses we've had to date has been we've been able to advertise homes for sale that, while not complete, are under construction. And I had quite a debate with our advertising agency, because they said, "Oh, you're putting pictures in the paper of houses that are only 2/3 finished." And I said, no. The problem we've had up here is, and I think Australia-wide, is that a lot of builders failed, and a lot of them can't get the materials they need. So therefore, people trying to buy a house, they get a block of land off us, then they go to see their builder. Quite often, the price can go up 2 or 3 times before they sign a contract. Sometimes the builders are wanting 12 months or more to complete their house, whereas if we can provide them with, we don't have a lot. Any given time, we've maybe got 5 or 6 houses for sale under construction on the estate, and we're finding that they sell now very quickly, probably within by the time you get the roof on and the frame up, there's a fair chance that they're going to be sold. And the builders that are supporting us, we see ourselves as land salespeople. We work closely with builders because we're not builders, but we want to do one job and do it well, which is provide the land. And we have builders that we've worked with for probably 20 odd. In fact, one of the builders we're working with, we worked with his father for 20 years before that. So again, like our team, we have a really loyal group of builders who we know and who've been working with us for sometimes 20 to 25 years. And the more houses we can put up, the quicker you sell the land. But the supply is starting to get a little bit better now, so that's probably not quite as big a problem as it was 6 or 8 months ago. But nevertheless, where there's built stock available for sale, people will gravitate to that first.
That's very interesting. So for the next stage, you think you'll put, would you look to increase the amount of built stock you put on the land lots, or for say stages 5 and 6?
Probably, mate. Depends on our financier, I suppose.
Good answer.
But yes, look, look, as you know, Joe, we're very cautious borrowers. So I believe that one of the biggest expenses for anyone in our business at the moment is finance, because it's nobody's fault. It's just high, and we're cautious about how much of that we have from time to time. But nevertheless, we've got in stage 20, we've got 4 houses going up there using the builders we've got. So yeah, look, we may look at doing a few more ourselves, and but I just don't know where demand's going to go. The demand's very strong at the moment, and I guess having been in this industry for some time, I keep wondering when that's going to slow down. But at this stage, even though the rest of the economy seems to be getting a bit of heartburn, we're not seeing it at all. We've, as I said, we're happily selling 5 to 6 blocks of land a month without any real. We haven't done a huge amount of marketing, to be honest. We're doing a lot of social media, which seems to, I don't pretend to understand, but which does seem, I'm sure I will understand that. But that seems to be getting us all the inquiry that we need.
And look, that leads into the next question, Terry. Before we get onto this urban developer article, can you just tell us about where the buyers are coming from? Because I find that to be quite interesting. And
yeah, it is. It's interesting, Joe. When we first started on this, I thought, well, you've got Brisbane and you've got Logan City in the middle, which is a very price conscious sort of area. Then you've got Beaudesert and you've got the Gold Coast, which is sort of, Gold Coast, Brisbane North, Gold Coast South, Logan southwest, and Beaudesert even a bit further southwest. So it's like a big triangle. And we honestly thought that most of our buyers would come from the Brisbane region, people moving out to get cheaper land and cheaper housing, and or Logan City, where, again, it hasn't got the greatest reputation in Australia. It's a troubled area from time to time. We thought people would gravitate towards Beaudesert, where the crime rate's almost zero. We've got a lot of infrastructure like hospitals and things like that. But surprisingly to us, 2 things have proven to be different than what we thought. We thought we'd get a lot of first home owners, and we thought they'd come from the north. 66% of our buyers have come from the Gold Coast to date, and the average age of those is 64 years of age. We're finding an enormous amount of people. The Gold Coast is almost out of land, and if you can buy a block of land on the Gold Coast, it's probably going to cost you somewhere starting at 700,000, or even up at Ormo, which is the northern end of the Gold Coast. And very, very average suburban development there, you'll still pay 550,000, 560,000 for a block of land. And on the Gold Coast proper, 700 to 800 to $1 million. Whereas the young couple who are next to our sales office, they're two lawyers who work on the Gold Coast. They bought it Beaudesert because they could get a far better house than they could on the Gold Coast, and all they have to do is commute by 45 minutes each day, each way. But essentially, I think what's happening is that a lot of people are moving out of they're selling at the Gold Coast. They're getting their $2 million, $2.5 million for their house. They're older. So they own their houses, or almost own their houses. They're coming to see us. They're getting a better house than they probably sold on a better block of land. And the only difference is 40 minutes travel. And they're getting that and probably still ending up with an extra $500,000 in their kick. So I've been surprised, but more than happy. I've learned not to be surprised. If you're having success, don't worry about it. Just enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, but and on that point too, Terry, it's quite interesting. Is just the amenity that is in Beaudesert, because you're saying that the elder people can come to Beaudesert and they're a 2 or 3 minute drive from a very good quality hospital, whereas if you're in the Gold Coast, it's a half-hour drive from the hospital.
Plus it's sometimes an hour in
Yeah,
traffic.
yeah, and
The
if
other
you're
thing too, Joe, sorry to might interrupt, but the other thing there that's relative to especially the older group of buyers, which are making up, as I said, over 60% of our buyers, within 2 minutes of their new home, they've got a good quality hospital. They've got the police, which is it's a regional centre for the police. I think there's 35 police stationed at Beaudesert now. They've got a fire brigade. They've got the ambulance. All of this within 3 minutes drive. Research has told us over the years, but we've been doing this for a long time now, and research has told us that the availability of not just one supermarket for a household, for the lady of the household, probably being, I'm probably showing my age there, but normally it's the lady that wants to go shopping, because I hate it. I won't go shopping at all. And most of them, research has told us, wanted a minimum of 2 supermarkets to pick from. Whereas in Beaudesert, you've literally got 4. You've got Coles, Woolworths, Aldi's, and IGA. So it's a little microcosm of everything that the older buyer wants to have to feel safe, secure, and happy, and healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. You got I think it was at least half a dozen schools. You've got
there's 13 schools and a couple of preschools.
Yeah, and look, the other thing too, which I'll touch on, which we think is important, is you mentioned that it's an Olympic, the rowing event to be held at Beaudesert. It is the road infrastructure between Brisbane and the Gold Coast is continually, between Brisbane and Beaudesert is continuing to be upgraded. So, and that's a flow on from the Olympics as well. So the travel time between Brisbane and Beaudesert will obviously get shorter and shorter. We've even noticed it in the years we've been financing Beaudesert that it's now basically almost a dual carriageway, 60% of the way between Beaudesert and Brisbane.
Yeah, there also, Joe, there's been released recently draft plans for the extension of the electric train line from Salisbury, where it finishes at the moment, which is a suburb of Brisbane, to Beaudesert by the time of the Olympics. So you add an electric train line as well as good roads, and it sort of hits it out of the park, really.
Yeah, all right. And look, what I want to talk about now, I do want to get onto this article about the urban developer article, and we're happy to share that with anybody who wants a copy of it. Just quickly, can you talk to us about you're in the moment of getting the revalued? Can you talk about where values are sitting at the moment and where you expect the valuation to come in at? We're getting an independent valuation of the entire estate. Are you able to provide just some preliminary commentary of where you expect that to land. By the way, that is an independent valuer instructed by the financier. But Terry, you got some preliminary figures back there, or?
Yeah, mate. I actually think that the need to keep valuations relatively up to date is important, and it's important to use an arm's length person because often use them as a barometer. If they tell me that something's too dear or too cheap, then you're getting the right advice rather than advice that you want. But in this case, I gave them some material to start the valuation with the other day, and his initial response to me was that since he had last valued it for us nearly a year ago, there had been significant purchases in that Beaudesert region and further west out around Ripley, and in his view, he thought our values would probably rise by in the vicinity of another 25 to 35% when he finishes the valve. There been no guarantees, of course, but that was his initial thought process because he was able to make a short comparison or a quick comparison with other sales that had happened in the last 12 months. And it was apparent that people were paying, as I said, a lot more for their land. I think when he valued it for us first, it was $40 a square metre, and from memory, and the current sales around Beaudesert are more like $90 to $95 a square metre. So I suppose you could speculate that the valuation could be as much as 50% higher than it currently is.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'll quickly want to touch on this recent article. I mean, I read it in full, and it's a very interesting article. And I'll let Terry add to what I introduce it to the group as. But the urban developer are promoting a theory, or it's not really a theory, but they're commenting the fact that effectively the Gold Coast is full. There's nowhere further to be developed, and that people are now spilling over west of the Gold Coast, and there's a wave of potential residents that are coming into Beaudesert. It was a very, very good article. It actually specifically mentions you, Terry. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that article, whether you agree with the synopsis, and what that means for the further stages within your estate?
Yep. As I said to you, Joe, the other day, the only objection I had was that they referred to me as a veteran. A veteran property figure. I'm not sure what that means. But anyway, but I think to understand the topography of the Gold Coast in particular is important because it sort of extends now to Nerang, where they've got residential development. Further west of that's largely acreage type stuff. And then you get to out from there, you eventually bump into the Australian Urban Land Warfare land, which is owned by the Department of Defence. They own some thousands of hectares out there where they train at Canungra, where they train all the SAS and people like that. And so then you have to jump out to Canungra, and then Canungra is constrained because it's very hilly and there's only a certain amount of land there that can be developed, and it's very expensive to develop because it's all rock. So then you move a little bit further west, and there's Beaudesert, which, as I said, on average, a 45 to 50-minute drive, to from Nerang to Beaudesert. It's not a highway drive. It's a hilly drive, but nevertheless, that's as long as it takes. It's quite pleasant, and it's the only place that really it can go because Tamborine Mountain's there, I suppose. But Tamborine Mountain's an acquired taste. You're going to spend half an hour driving up to the mountain, and I think what's happening is that Beaudesert is the biggest centre with the most amenities between Nerang and where we are. Everything else is just piecemeal and is taken up with other purposes. So I think people are looking at all of the things I said, and I think the big kicker for them is that they can leave the Gold Coast, build a bigger house on a nice block of land, and still have money in their pocket and everything they want within 2 or 3 minutes drive. So that seems to be the information flow that we're getting back now, and we're happy with that. I mean, we've got, as you know, Joe, we've got our own sales and marketing team because I'd encourage any young developer to make sure he has his own marketing capacity because the gap between local real estate agents and development marketing is big, and a lot of developers make the mistake of, giving the listing to the local real estate agent, and that invariably means that they slow down everything. So yeah, I think that hopefully that's an answer for you, Joe.
No, thank you for that. And look, if anybody wants a copy of that article, if they're interested, we're happy to send it. And I've just got a quick extract of it up now. But I suppose, Terry, you're a little bit ahead of yourself in that, look, some of these more ASX listed, what are called institutional developers, are starting to buy up around your estate. That's driven up prices. Do you think they'll create competition for you, good, bad? What's your view on that?
I hope so. Look, for a long time, we were the sole batsman, for one like in the cricket team there. But once you get people like Jennings, it was a Singapore-based, I think, public company. You've got Mormac Property out of Melbourne, made up of largely ex-land lease people. They've bought enough land for 1,000 blocks. AB Jennings have got 1,000 blocks. QM have got 350. I think they're one of the biggest privately owned Queensland developers. My view of the world is that if we do what we do better than anybody else, then we deserve the success. And if we don't do as well as we should do, then that's our problem. But to me, I think competition's a wonderful thing. I think the more people come, the more land's for sale, the more people are advertising it, the more people are talking about it, the more people are going to come there. And then it just gets down to whether or not we're able to do what we do at least as well as, or hopefully better than the other guy.
Well, the other thing too is it activates the town, doesn't it? Brings in amenity, makes it a more livable town. So I personally think it's a good thing. Look, that was all we really wanted to cover. Terry, thank you for your time. You're very, very generous. I've got our technical person here. I'm not sure if we have any questions. You're able to check if we've got any questions, or if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask a question. Otherwise, thank you all for your time. If you're if you want to, we offer, Spring Creek is a long-term partnership for us. So Terry, we've been working with him for many years, and we want to we want to continue funding this project. So if you want to learn more about Spring Creek, feel free to contact us. And also, we will have other offers where you can invest as a debt provider to Spring Creek in the coming months. So I don't think there are any questions, but thank you so much, Terry, for your time. And thank you everybody else for taking the time to join the webinar. I hope you found it was informative. And as I said, if you do want a copy of that urban developer article, please contact Capital Property Funds directly. Hang on, I do have a question here, sorry. How much do you spend on marketing, Terry?
Good question. It's a little bit how long's a piece of string, but when the market is strong as it is at the moment, as I said, we are using social media to a large degree. It's pretty economical. We can spend a minimum there of about $2,500 a month, or we can spend up to about $7,000 or $8,000 a month. That's pretty cost effective to sell 5 or 6 blocks of land a month. When inquiry drops away, we'll normally go back to more mainstream advertising, such as radio, television, newspapers. Radio's traditionally never worked all that well with land, maybe because you can't see it. But newspapers and TV, they've used TV in the past. Social media sort of taken that over a little bit. But essentially, we would budget at the start of the project around about 5% of each the cost in the cost of each sale of our feasibility for each stage for advertising.
Okay. All right. Well, no, thank you for that, Terry. All right. Well, look, without any, if there's no further questions, I'll close the webinar. But again, Terry, thank you so much for your time. You're very generous, and thank you to our investors for their continued support.
Yeah, no, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Take care.
Thanks, mate.